Teenager could spend up to 2 decades in prison after her sentencing today for plotting to kill her family. But 7 Action News reporter Dave Llewellyn tells us there are concerns over the sentencing of a juvenile as an adult.
Hello, I need emergency. Oh my God, she's dead. She's not breathing at all. I don't know, I can't tell. Is she breathing? Peter, my husband's here. He said no. Her children, I don't know where her children are. We have 2 cars and an ambulance on the way. These were the panicked words of Annette Presti, the mother of Joanne Presty, as she frantically called 911 after finding her daughter lying lifeless in her own home. The sheer shock and horror in her voice painted a grim picture of the tragic crime scene she had just walked into. But to fully understand the magnitude of this horrific event, we need to take a step back and look at the events that led up to that fateful moment. Joanne Presty and her daughter, Alyssa Presty.
Jury comes in. I know some of you are here just because you're, interested in this case, but some of you might have a lot of emotional investment in the case.
Were brutally murdered on January 5, 2004. Joanne was just 34 years old. Her daughter Alyssa was only 12. Their sudden and violent deaths shook the quiet town of Woburn, Massachusetts, leaving a community in mourning and police scrambling to solve a case that seemed to hit a dead end at every turn. What makes this case even more disturbing is that the person responsible for their deaths was someone they knew, someone they trusted. The life of Joanne Presty, a loving mother with a difficult past. Joanne Presty was born on March 7, 1969, to Peter and Annette Presty. She grew up in Stoneham, Massachusetts, in a traditional Italian family. As the only daughter among 3 brothers, she was raised in a household that valued loyalty, family, and strong bonds. Her upbringing shaped her into a fiercely independent and caring woman, someone who believed in love, trust, and community. Like many women, Joanne faced her fair share of heartbreak in relationships. Her romantic history was marked by trust and betrayal, but through it all, she remained resilient. Her first major relationship was with John Carter, a professional hockey player for the Boston Bruins. Their romance was passionate but short-lived, and Joanne soon found herself pregnant. In 1991, she gave birth to her daughter, Alyssa. But instead of stepping up, John Carter abandoned both of them. He made it clear that he had no intention of being part of Alyssa's life, leaving Joanne to raise their daughter alone. Despite the disappointment, Joanne was determined to provide a loving and stable home for Alyssa. She worked tirelessly to ensure her child never felt the absence of a father. And for a while, it seemed like she had found the support she needed when she met Frank Martino. Unlike John, Frank was kind, caring, and ready to commit. The 2 got married and, in 1993, welcomed their son Justin. For a while, they built a happy home together, and Frank proved to be a loving father figure to both Justin and Alyssa. But as time passed, cracks began to form in their marriage. Differences grew, arguments became more frequent, and eventually, the relationship fell apart. After 6 years together, Joanne and Frank divorced. Though their marriage ended, Frank remained a dedicated father. But Joanne's next relationship would prove to be a far more sinister and life-threatening ordeal. The Nightmare of Thomas Polk, a relationship built on fear. Around the early 2000s, Joanne met a man named Thomas Polk. At first, he appeared charming and charismatic, but beneath the surface, he was anything but kind. Thomas had a long history of domestic abuse, and it wasn't long before Joanne became one of his victims. His ex-wife, Cassandra, had suffered brutal beatings at his hands, including one horrifying incident where he slammed her head into a bathroom sink while she was pregnant. Joanne had no idea she was getting involved with such a violent man. By the time she realized the danger, she was already trapped. Thomas became increasingly aggressive, subjecting Joanne to horrific abuse. One night, he strangled her with a phone cord. In another instance, he threatened to blow up her car. The most heartbreaking part. Alyssa witnessed it all. She saw her mother suffer in silence, powerless to stop it. Gone was the safe and happy home Joanne had built. Thomas had turned it into a nightmare. Then things got even more complicated. Joanne became pregnant with Thomas's child. In 2001, she gave birth to their son, Sean Polk. But by this point, she had reached her breaking point. She filed for a restraining order against Thomas and finalized their divorce in 2002. She was finally free from his grip, but the trauma lingered. Now a single mother of 3, Joanne needed a fresh start. She wanted a safe place where her kids could grow up without fear. That's when she discovered Woburn, Massachusetts. A new beginning in Woburn. Woburn was a small, tight-knit town, known for its friendly community and old-fashioned values. Joanne saw it as the perfect place to rebuild her life. By 2003, she had moved in and quickly became an active member of the community. Neighbors loved her warmth and generosity. She had an open-door policy for local kids, always welcoming them with snacks, games, and kind words. Her kindness earned her the nickname the Pied Piper of Woburn. Children adored her, and parents trusted her. Alyssa also thrived in her new environment. She was a bright, responsible, and loving girl who took care of her younger brothers. A straight-A student, she dreamed of becoming a pediatrician one day. She joined the cheerleading team, made friends easily, and was the favorite grandchild of her grandparents. For the first time in a long time, Joanne and Alyssa felt safe. They finally had a home filled with love again. But beneath the surface, danger lurked, and it was closer than anyone could have imagined. A trusted neighbor with dark intentions. Joanne had a friendly relationship with many of her neighbors. One of them was Harinder Singh, her landlord. He often stopped by to help fix things in the house, and Joanne seemed to trust him. Some people speculated that there may have been something more between them, but nothing was ever confirmed. What was clear, though, was that Harinder had an unusual amount of access to Joanne's home. On January 5, 2004, everything changed. The day everything fell apart. Joanne had spent New Year's with her family, celebrating and making plans for the future. On January 3rd, she went out to a bar with a friend while Bobby Joe Miller, her close friend and neighbor, babysat her kids. The next day, she picked them up and visited Bobby. Bobby later recalled that Joanne looked exhausted, but nothing seemed unusual. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. On January 5th, Bobby called Joanne multiple times to confirm their shopping plans, but Joanne never answered. Her blinds were closed, something she never did. Her car hadn't moved for hours. Bobby knocked on her door, no response. Concerned, she called Joanne's mother, Annette, and asked her to check on her daughter. Annette and Peter Presti arrived at Joanne's house around 4:00 p.m. They found the side door unlocked. As they stepped inside, they were met with an eerie silence. Then they saw her. Joanne was lying on the couch, motionless, her face turned toward the backrest. Annette called out to her, but got no response. As she stepped closer, she saw it. A pool of blood beneath her. The horror that followed would leave scars on everyone involved. Joanne and Alyssa were gone. Justice for Joanne and Alyssa. The investigation into Joanne and Alyssa's deaths was long and difficult as detectives struggled to find answers. At first, there were no obvious suspects. Joanne had no known enemies, and nothing seemed to suggest that she had been in danger. But as investigators pieced together the evidence, one name kept coming up. Someone close, someone trusted. The deeper they dug, the more they realized that this was not a random crime, but a betrayal of the worst kind. Friends and family were left in shock as the truth slowly unraveled, revealing a horrifying reality that no one had seen coming. The pain of losing Joanne and Alyssa was unbearable, but knowing that the person responsible had been within their circle made it even worse. The journey for justice would be long and painful, but those who loved them were determined to see it through. Who could have done this, and why? The truth behind this heartbreaking case would leave everyone stunned. Stay tuned as we reveal the shocking details behind the case that shattered an entire community. Stay tuned as we unravel the shocking truth behind this heart-wrenching case.